It's Thursday, March 26th, 2026. Back and forth we go on Iran, Islamists in the cradle of liberty, and Illinois goes on the record. Next on the AM Update. President Trump spoke to the NRCC last night on the issue of Iran, and much unlike what we heard yesterday, and that was much unlike what we heard the day before, and the day before that, and the day before that, he continues to say Iran is an imminent threat.
And then I said, we're going to have to do something about Iran because they're going to have a nuclear weapon very soon, and they're crazy. They're crazy. They're out of their minds, and we have to stop them. And I say, well, we're going to take a big hit. We're going to go through this certain route, and we'll get right back here, but we have to go and stop him. Every president should have done it. I heard that today Blinken made a statement that he should have done it. Thanks a lot, Blinken. I appreciate it. Blinken is Biden's guy, I guess. Who the hell knows who he is? He's his guy. But he came out with a statement that they should have done it. They made a mistake.
President Trump in front of the National Republican Congressional Committee saying that he did what other presidents and former secretaries of state and other individuals with the power to do such things should have done with Iran, defending his actions there. The Central Command, U.S. Central Command, and Commander Bradley Cooper provided yet another update on what's going on with Iran, stating they targeted now 10,000 sites all over Iran. When you take into account the joint partnership between the United States and Israel, over 10,000 targets struck. Probably into the teens now. That's just an unbelievable number now, 4 weeks in. Still no word yet on these supposed back-channel negotiations that the White House is engaging in with Tehran. I am still seeing many reports. Who knows the veracity of those reports that the United States continues to deploy assets, deploy troops to the Middle East. I saw a story in the New York Times. The New York Times, at least this is how it was being couched, saying that all of our bases were destroyed over in the Middle East, and we're making our troops work remotely because all of our bases have been destroyed and they're uninhabitable. That just sounds like some straight up propaganda for me. Maybe you saw that floating around from the New York Times. Meanwhile, back at home in the cradle of liberty, Philadelphia.
Until we have done everything in our power to bring the United States to its knees, let us not lose sight of the enemy. For every U.S. military base that crumbles, and for every U.S. soldier who returns home in the casket, we cheer. Hamas, Hezbollah, Ansarullah, all of the resistance forces we celebrate. These popular voices on the ground spend every waking moment in direct confrontation with Zionism, and they rely on a strong Iranian state to maintain their fighting capacity.
Do you hate America? May a Hamas rocket blow up your family's home.
So there is Islamism on full display in the cradle of liberty, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. These Islamists go to places like this, gather in places like this. So there were probably 3 or 4 dozen people gathered to hear that crazy person speak. They gather in places like this symbolically to try to show their strength, flex their rhetorical and numbers muscles. Isn't that just declaring that you are an enemy of the United States, right? In public, you're overtly saying the United States is the enemy while making those comments in public in Philadelphia, and you can't wait for the day that more soldiers return in caskets. I mean, that kind of sounds insurrection-y to me. Back at the White House, Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt has revealed that the once-canceled meeting between President Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping has been rescheduled.
I'm pleased to announce that President Trump's meeting and long-awaited meeting with President Xi in China will now take place in Beijing on May 14th and 15th.
May 14th and 15th, the long-awaited trip to China. Caroline Leavitt also revealing that Chinese president and his first lady, whatever they call them over there, will be visiting the White House or Washington, D.C., one of the two, coming up at a later date. We go to Chicago, where Illinois officials are finally going on the record over the tragic, heinous, and totally preventable murder of that 18-year-old Loyola Chicago student, Sheridan Gorman. who was really executed by that illegal alien from Venezuela. Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson, a huge proponent of sanctuary city policies, says despite this wickedness that just unfolded on his streets, he's not going to stop the hard work of protecting illegal aliens like Sheridan Gorman's murderer.
Did you reconsider rescheduling this event given the murder of Sheridan Gorman by an undocumented immigrant?
Well, look, as I've said before, my condolences to the family of Sheridan. This is a terrible tragedy. And what I've said from the very beginning, I'm going to continue to use every single tool that's available to me to protect the residents of the city of Chicago. And this tragedy is not going to deter us from our work.
So there's Brandon Johnson saying, I don't care that an illegal alien just executed Sheridan Gorman. My job is to, quote unquote, protect the residents of the city of Chicago. You might be wondering if you heard the question there. It was difficult to hear because of the audio. The question was, have you considered rescheduling this event in the wake of the tragedy? Well, what is this event? Chicago, now for a few years, has held a snowplow naming contest where you can name a snowplow. Brandon Johnson, Chicago's mayor, was speaking at the event announcing the winner of that contest yesterday. In the midst of this tragedy, in the midst of this utterly preventable tragedy, lay directly at the feet of open borders of Biden and pro-crime policies that Brandon Johnson champions. So he's at this ceremony, this event, to name the snowplow naming challenge contest. The name of the snowplow that won that contest, he's speaking right in front of it. The name of that snowplow is Abolish ICE. And you could hear even that lefty reporter referring to the illegal alien as an undocumented immigrant. Even she was like, bro, optics much? My goodness. Brandon Johnson isn't the only Illinois official going on the record on the brutal murder of Sheridan Gorman. Here's Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker laying the blame at Trump.
There have been real failures. Those failures, of course, extend beyond the borders of Illinois. That's their national failures, a failure to have comprehensive immigration reform, a failure of the president to follow his own edict to go after the worst of the worst. There have been...
Yes. How far we've come. About 3 years ago, people like J.D. Pritzker would have said, What problem? What immigration problem? We are going to resettle all of these immigrants into our fair city. And now he's saying, hey, it's Trump's fault he hasn't even followed through on his edicts to deport these types of people. My goodness. Let's go back to the White House for a dose of bizarre. First Lady Melania Trump touted humanoid robots. No, I'm not making that up. Listen to this.
Thank you, First Lady Melania Trump, for inviting me to the White House. It is an honor to be at Fostering the Future Together's Global Coalition inaugural meeting. I'm Figure 3, a humanoid built in the United States of America. I am grateful to be part of this historic movement to empower children with technology and education. Welcome. Bienvenidos. Yokoso.
Yes, that's a robot, quote unquote, speaking there. First Lady Melania Trump walked side by side with that robot down the hall, faceless figure. It was a humanoid AI robot known as Figure 03. Videos from the summit that Melania Trump held. The robot can be seen mechanically strolling next to the First Lady, welcoming, as you just heard, all in the room in several different languages. First Lady Melania Trump said, Figure 03, thank you for joining me. It's fair to state you are my first American-made humanoid guest in the White House. Okay, then. Let's go to this before the break. Nick Shirley, he's that YouTuber from Minnesota who sprung open the Minnesota fraud scandal, or at least shed a light on it that it previously hadn't gotten in the national spotlight. He's in California right now where he had this man on street interview with somebody asking if they would support Gavin Newsom for president. Listen to this.
Let's vote for Gavin Newsom in 2028.
I vote for him because he got me released from coming home from a life sentence.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. So
he didn't hold me back. He signed off saying I'm fit for society. So yes, I would vote for Gavin Newsom.
I would probably vote for Gavin Newsom too if I were you then. And what'd he do for you then? Or like, what were you locked up for? If you don't mind me asking.
I was locked up for murder, carjacking, and robbery.
That can't be real. Nick Shirley is just jumping the shark, isn't he? It's understandable. You had a multi tens of millions of views video highlighting fraud in Minnesota. Now you're trying to take that same act to California. You just happened to bump into somebody on the street who says they would vote for Gavin Newsom because he got them off the hook for murder, carjacking, and robbery. Come on now. Nick Shirley's he's just punking us, right? When we come back, the first female archbishop of the Church of England. Yes, that's real. Also, a legal case in California could have major ramifications for children, social media, and the future of protections, legal protections for social media companies. That's coming up next.
Before you to the service of the Church of England, the Anglican Communion, and the whole Church of Christ throughout the world, that together we may proclaim the gospel of Christ, who reconciles us to God and breaks down the walls that divide us.
Dame Sarah Mullally has become the new leader of the Church of England. She's a former cancer nurse, became a quote-unquote priest at the age of 40, and is the church's first quote-unquote female Archbishop of Canterbury. Ceremony took place at Canterbury Cathedral, attended by Prince William, Princess Catherine, UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, and other figures. Maybe a lot of thing a church it is not. Although that's kind of in the Church of England's tradition, is it not? Back at home, a jury in California found that Meta, that'd be Facebook and Instagram, Meta and Google were to blame for the depression and anxiety of a woman who compulsively used social media as a small child, awarding her $6 million in a rare verdict holding Silicon Valley accountable for its role in fueling a youth mental health crisis. The jurors concluded that Meta and Google should pay the woman $3 million in compensatory damages and an additional $3 million in punitive damages, with Meta on the hook for 70% of that amount. The verdict validated the plaintiff and her lawyer's approach of shifting the legal target instead of focusing on the content people see on social media. The case put the spotlight on how social media services were designed. Meta's apps, including Instagram and Google's YouTube, the jury concluded, were deliberately built to be addictive, and the company's executives knew this and failed to protect their youngest users. There is a similar case being deliberated, I believe, at the United States Supreme Court. And here's the long and short of this case out of California, and from what I've read and heard about the case at the Supreme Court. Essentially, this is all an effort to blame shift poor parenting. And yes, it is poor parenting. If you're giving your young children unfettered access to the internet and social media, you are a bad parent. You just are. But this is an effort to basically alleviate the blame of parents, bad parenting, and put it at the feet of these social media and tech companies. Now, is that the real cause of the so-called mental health crisis? No, it's that people need Jesus. Kids need good parents. Kids need parents who love them enough to set boundaries for them and what content they see, what play they should do, like actually playing outside of screens. That's what kids need. That's the real problem. At the same time, though, if you're telling me that all of these tech companies, Meta, Google, all of these tech companies are going to have to start figuring out how to avoid legal liability for basically aiding and abetting that poor parenting. Now we might be getting somewhere. We might be getting somewhere. These companies, their main goal is to retain eyeballs, and they don't care how old those eyeballs are. Yet at the same time, they do that because they want to make money. Those eyeballs are converted into advertising dollars, potential marketing campaigns, what have you. You know the drill. However, if the juice becomes not worth the squeeze, you could start to see them changing their tactics quite a bit. I don't know what that looks like. I know that this is not really addressing the main issue here, which is the spiritual destitution of large swaths of our country. They need Jesus, they need good churches, and most of all, great parents, along with Jesus. But I don't think this could be a bad thing in the long term. Maybe I'm just too optimistic. Speaking of optimism, Kevin O'Leary, businessman turned TV mogul turned actor, actually. He was in a movie recently. He's on Fox News every now and then. He provided a very rosy picture of what he expects to see economically the next 90 days when it comes to Iran and the Strait of Hormuz. Listen to this.
That's really good for everybody because that's a lot more trade into Asia. That's the hub. UAE is the hub of trade for that whole region. That'll be a great outcome for investors like me. And I don't want to make light of the war. I keep saying that, but I'm thinking ahead 90 days here, and I'm liking what I see. Not the war. I keep saying that. I don't need the headaches on social media, but you know what I'm saying in terms of long-term vision. Yeah. Third, which I find really, really intriguing, is no matter what happens, no enriched uranium, that's got to be found and taken out of the country. That'll be part of the deal. Hormuz will be open in perpetuity. We've got 22 nations talking about supporting that financially. That's just like the Suez or Panama Canal. Great for the region. It's a game changer in the sense that all of a sudden you have stability in the fastest growing part of the earth. It's very, very bullish for world markets. And again, I preface it, I don't like war, but you got to let this play out because the big vision here is to finally stop this problem we've had for 60 years, and I really like that outcome.
Kevin O'Leary with a very rosy picture, what he expects to see, says let things play out when it comes to Iran and the conflict therein and the resulting economics that stem from this. What do you think? I asked you, are we close to a deal with Iran? I gave you a few options. Yes, no, we're setting them up again, and something else. We'll get to those somethings else in a little bit. In third place, 15.6% said, yes, we're close to getting a deal with Iran. 28.6% say, we're just setting them up again, posturing like we want to have a deal, while also moving troops, assets, more of them, into the region. And in first place, 48.7% say, no, we're not close to getting a deal with Iran. Let's see what you say. James says, my hope is that we're just setting them up, but honestly, who's even over there in charge to make a deal with anymore? It feels like a headless snake thrashing around and blindly striking at anything in its path. Yeah, I'm sure there are people within the IRGC, within the regime, who are maybe a little bit more moderate, would like to see themselves maybe running the show over there, who I'm sure would love to strike a deal. Do they have any real power, though? Convention of States is the way, says, not close to anything they would actually honor. Forces all 5th century barbarians understand, finish the job. See, I understand that sentiment as well. You've already done some damage, somewhat long-term damage, to some of these energy supply chains. You can't be a little bit pregnant. Can't be 75% pregnant. If you've already done some long-term damage to some of these energy supply chains, pulling out now is signaling, hey, we just have to wait till Trump is gone to the Iranian regime, and then we'll just start everything back up again the way it was before. That's kind of my fear, anyway. Conan says, I don't have any idea, and I don't know how to tell, and I don't think we'll know until it's been done, and then we'll have to wait and see how well it holds up afterwards. See, that's also a concern. Hey, if we just declared today, hey, we got these however many kilograms of 60% enriched uranium, we got that out of the country, we're just pulling out now. We struck 10,000 places. They're pretty much, their ability to project power, yeah, it's hit and miss, but it's mostly miss these days. They're very much defanged. They don't have the enriched uranium. All of their scientists are dead. We're pulling out. Mission accomplished. If we actually did a good job, if we actually had our objectives met, we probably wouldn't know for sure for another 10 years. However, If our objectives were not met, we're looking at, again, we were in this position around this time last year in the lead up to Operation Midnight Hammer, which we were told destroyed their nuclear capacity. They can spin things up. The Iranians have shown that they can spin things back up really fast. John George says, I hope not. We need to end this threat once and for all, I should say. Light the Dark says, if that deal involves saying we're close to a deal and then bombing them into submission, then I say yes. I like that deal. Wow. Okay. You're just going all the way there. Bob says, who's speaking for Iran? We just heard that a little bit ago. Trumpet says, we're setting them up. The only deal that can be made is for the Strait of Hormuz. They take that deal. They're greatly weakened. The Iranian opposition groups and or Israel finish taking them out later. That's also something I've thought about. Sure. We, the U.S., will make a deal with you. Now, as far as Israel, you're going to have to make a deal with them. That is potentially an off-ramp. MV17 says they are eating our lunch because our CIC is retarded. Really? It sounds like you've been reading the New York Times a little bit too much, Mr. Anti-Marxist, freedom-loving conservative American. Maybe get your news elsewhere. Scrolling here, you've retweeted Ian Carroll. You have retweeted a number of weird accounts here. Yeah, I think. You're calling Netanyahu Satan Yahoo. I kind of think, Mr. MV17, I kind of think maybe you might have an ulterior motive there. Just saying. That's going to do it for a Thursday. Tomorrow's an Ask or Tell Me Anything. You can ask me any question you want. Tell me any news story you think needs covered on the AM Update. Make your submissions. Look for the pinned post on X at Real AM Update. Have a wonderful Thursday. Back at it again tomorrow. I'm Aaron McIntyre, and this is the AM Update.